What is going on, everybody? Travis Fowler, Harkrider, is back with a brand new edition of Tights and Turnbuckles. I have missed you guys. Love seeing all of you. If you're new to this channel, I hope you like what you hear and you hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, make sure you give us a thumbs up too. Also, make sure you follow us on all of our social media pages. That is Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. And guys, if you're coming back to this channel, great to see you guys again, and I hope you've enjoyed your professional wrestling that's occurred in the last 2 weeks, because there's been plenty to talk about. So we're not going to waste any time with weekly high spots or anything like that. Let's get right into it, because there's plenty for us to go over, especially over the last 48 hours with all of the releases from both the main roster and NXT in WWE. First, we'll start off with WrestleMania, and we'll keep it very, very brief, because if you follow us over on the TikTok page, which like I said, you should be. My last video over on TikTok was actually my review of WrestleMania, and I do still believe, even 2 weeks later, that people are too hard on that Mania. It actually was more of a fun show than what people would like to give it credit for, but you can't appease everybody, so we're not going to try to do that here again. But I will go ahead and hit a couple of high spots. The first one being the CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns triple threat match. Went back and rewatched it, and it's still very entertaining. I actually thought it was entertaining on the first go-around watching it on night one. As I stated on that TikTok video, I thought night one overall was superior to night two. That's just my opinion. But people are already giving CM Punk crap, saying that he didn't really main event WrestleMania, because WrestleMania Sunday, which traditionally most WrestleManias before they made it a two-night event, actually took place on Sunday every year, so the real main event was night two, according to some fans, to which he responds with, I guess I'm just going to go on main event night two, since people want to keep moving that goalpost, and honestly, I think he will. So eventually that's going to happen, but we're not going to talk too much about that, because in my eyes, Punk is a WrestleMania main eventer, whether it's night one or two. If you are the final match that goes on to close out the show, no matter if it's a two-night event, one night, whatever the case, doesn't matter. The main event is still the main event. That's what you came to see on night 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number of night it is. The fact of the matter is, in my opinion, Punk did main event, and he had a killer main event with Rollins, Reigns, and Punk. I've gone back and rewatched that match in its entirety. It's still a lot of fun. The ending was beautifully done. The main event for night two also goes into question, but a whole lot of different reasons. Number one being the Travis Scott interference. People then talking about how The Rock wasn't around, and was it a good idea for John Cena to become not only the 17-time world champion, but as a heel, win the WrestleMania main event and close out WrestleMania on a, quote, bummer note, since a heel went over. After having some time to think about it, I still think that was the right idea for John to win the championship. It has always been about the face chasing the title. That's always where the money has been, is the face going after the championship. Don't get it twisted. Cody Rhodes is still the number one guy when it comes to babyfaces in WWE, even though, quite frankly, there are a couple of people, at least popularity-wise, that could mirror him. He is still the guy. That is my opinion. I will stick to it until somebody shows me someone else. That is not Jey Uso or even CM Punk themselves. I will even argue Roman Reigns, because even though Roman is a hot commodity, he has now reached what I would refer to as Brock Lesnar levels of attraction. He's not around all the time. Reports came out earlier this week that he's not even expected back on WWE TV until early June. So the proposed idea of the tag team match that's supposed to take place at Backlash here, I believe that is coming up. I think it's actually this Sunday. Wow, that's crazy to think. And if it's not this Sunday, it's next Sunday, which we'll talk about that at another time. But either way, the Backlash plan of a tag team match involving Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins, this new faction that is backed by Paul Heyman, taking on the team of Roman Reigns and CM Punk, is not going to happen, at least as of this moment. So we're going to have to wait a little bit before we get that encounter. I do think it's going to happen. And honestly, I think SummerSlam is where we're going to see Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns one-on-one. That'll be a fun matchup, especially for it being the first ever two-night SummerSlam taking place in New York also is a great idea, considering that is the spiritual home of the WWE. So All those plans are just speculation at this moment. We'll just have to wait and see what does occur as we get closer to SummerSlam. But we've still got so much to look forward to before then. We've got Backlash. We've got Money in the Bank. So many things still to come on the horizon for WWE. But there's always going to be downer notes, especially around this time of year, because this is traditionally when WWE does what's referred to as the spring layoffs, the post-Mania releases, and they kicked into gear just this past week. So I wanted to kind of save this for near the end since it just recently happened, but let's go ahead and talk about it just because it is so fresh and a lot of people are still talking about it, especially this morning after some of the things that have come out from a couple of the people responding to a report that was put out by Wrestle Talk via Wrestler Observer newsletter. That'd be one Uncle Dave Meltzer, stating that this round of NXT releases specifically were looked at of people that weren't working hard enough, was the quote. And I'll put the quotations around the working hard, because there are a few people that I don't think that actually was a great description of. In my opinion, some of the people that were on that list were some of the hardest workers that you could see, especially since they were on TV every single week, no matter if it was NXT or in this partnership, with TNA. They were being utilized. So it's really weird that that would be the story that is being peddled. Again, you got to consider the source. You can't just say that and then not look and see who's saying it. And I know that Uncle Dave was right when it came towards The Rock, which I'm sure he felt very vindicated in all that, especially when it came out last week on the Pat McAfee show that The Rock was never intended to be at Mania, despite Meltzer reporting that actually way back near the end of last year, only for The Rock to say, hey, don't believe that shit that you read. And yet we should have. This is one of those times where Meltzer was spot on and hit it. And it was very disappointing. And the fact that Rock actually co-signed it by stating that he had no plans to actually be there, especially when he was the catalyst for this John Cena heel turn, and he did that whole bad blood, slicing of the neck thing that he's been doing recently as this whole final boss. Yeah, it was very disheartening to hear that Rock was not ever going to be at Mania. It just didn't make sense. It made no sense whatsoever. People still are trying to figure out exactly how it is that this came to be, but we're never going to know the story. We're never going to know why this was not the plan to have Rock involved, especially when he, again, was part of the group that turned Cena heel in the first place, along with Travis Scott. And speaking of Travis Scott, I understand he has apparently made a deal to work with WWE in some capacity, maybe even have a match, which will be interesting because some people have speculated that a tag team match for Cena and Travis Scott will take place at SummerSlam. That would be interesting to see, because I'd be curious to see who they would pair Cody against, because I can only assume it would be against Cody. Maybe that's where Randy Orton steps in, considering he's got the match against John Cena coming up at Backlash in his hometown of St. Louis. Don't expect any kind of title change to take place there. Cena is going to go over there, I guarantee it. But that could lead to somewhere along the lines of Cody and Randy having their feud that a lot of people have been waiting for. Some would have preferred it be over the championship, myself included. But that's not what we might be looking at. I think it would be a great way to segue into an Orton-Rhodes feud to help get Rhodes ready to face Cena again and eventually take the title off him, because I feel like that is eventually what we will see, is Cody getting the championship back from John Cena. But I would not be surprised if that doesn't take place until Survivor Series, or even the very last pay-per-view of the year, or even the last show of the year, which I believe they've announced is at Madison Square Garden. So that should be very interesting. Anyway, I digress. I know we were going to talk about the releases, so let's go ahead and get into that. My apologies for the segue elsewhere. It tends to happen with me even in my personal life. So let's go ahead and rally off the names that have been released by WWE. The list that I'm actually going to put up here on a split screen does not include two names, that being the names of Shotzi and Danny Palmer. Those two names are not on this list, but Everyone else, this is who's been released. Katana Chance, Caden Carter, Dakota Kai, Braun Strowman, Shayna Baszler, Gigi Dolan, Cora Jade, Eddie Thorpe, Riley Osborne, Jakara Jackson, Gallus, Ora Mensa, and Javier Bernal. A lot of those I actually don't really see the value in, and clearly WWE didn't either. But some of them were head scratchers, I have to admit. I don't really understand on some of them as to exactly why they were released, and in due time we'll find out, at least from a couple of them, specifically Cora Jade, who's already renamed herself Ilana Black, I believe is how it's pronounced, over on X. She has already made that transition and is starting to get booking inquiries. Remember, a non-compete NXT contract is only for 30 days as opposed to the main roster of 90 days. So we're going to see Miss Black make her appearance well known somewhere very quickly. And I have some suggestions on some of these people, but before we get into that, I want to just specify that all of these names, if they really want to continue to succeed, a lot of them have so much potential to do so. And I think some of them may be stepping away permanently, as some have already said. Danny Palmer has announced that she's done with her athletic career, specifically, at least when it comes to wrestling. She's done and over. Some people were rejoicing over that because she made some controversial comments about her own personal beliefs, and it didn't rub people the right way, we'll say that. But honestly, let's kind of run down some of these and talk about where I think they could fit in well. Katana Chance and Caden Carter had been a team for quite some time. The KC Squared, KC Connection, KC2, however you want to refer to them. I know a lot of online chatter kind of gave them certain nicknames, and I really would hope that somehow they could still be a team, and honestly, I think they would fit in perfectly over in TNA. They've got tag history out the wazoo. They were women's tag team champions, I believe, in both NXT as well as WWE once they disbanded those NXT tag titles for the women's division. I think they would fit perfectly over there because they would give them something more to do in the ranks of the tag team division. I felt like, at least for a while, they were that team that was just lost. Nobody knew what to do with them except use them for good matches here and there, and especially with Katana Chance, who was one of the American Ninja Warrior winners. She displayed a lot of great potential as an in-ring worker, and I really hope she continues down that path because she has a lot of upside if she does. Caden Carter had already made herself known under the Lacey name. I believe that was her name. I can't remember the last name, so I don't want to try to disrespectfully say it. But it wouldn't surprise me for her to do that, going over maybe with Chance to TNA, and if they want to go solo, or at least maybe one of them goes solo. I think they both could have potential there if they thought that's what they want to do. Dakota Kai is the biggest head scratcher for me, as she was always a reliable worker. She was in the finals of the Intercontinental title tournament with Lyra Valkyria, and a lot of people, myself included, wanted her to win. So it was very disappointing that it didn't work out that way, honestly. I really hope the best for Kai, and I hope that she does land on her feet. Some have already speculated that she'll go to AEW, and according to Meltzer, there was an offer on the table for her to go to AEW before she returned to WWE. So I guess that could always still be a possibility, but I don't know. I don't know if AEW would be a good fit for her or not. I think it would, at least from a worker standpoint, but I would be fearful that she would get lost in the shuffle. It's the same that I would feel about Cora Jade, Ilana Black. Coincidentally enough, CM Punk even said in a very heartfelt goodbye to his friend on his Instagram account, hey, stay away from TK. So I wonder if she'll take that into consideration. Braun Strowman is a guy that actually was very reliable throughout this run. He helped make guys like Bronson Reed and Jacob Fatu look like beasts of wrestlers, and did very well at doing so. I hate that his time has come to an end, but in the same breath, he really hadn't made any big difference, at least for himself, when it came towards being a character on TV. Again, outside of the feuds with Reed and Fatu, there really wasn't much that we saw of Strowman, and that in itself was disappointing. But I have to admit, I didn't really see the value out of Strowman, at least on this run, like we did in the previous run before he was released. Shayna Baszler is one of those that really is also disappointing, but understandable because even JD from NY pointed out her age being a factor. And that was a reason that was given by Dave Meltzer for a lot of the main roster cuts were the age factor for some of these guys. Their connection with the audience may not be there. They didn't have anything for them to do, along with an aging factor. Apparently, that was the reason for some of these main roster cuts. Shayna, though, had apparently been helping out down in NXT for a little bit, which became a head scratcher as to why she got released. But don't get it twisted. Baszler, I think, would make a great addition over in AEW. It would not surprise me if she does end up over there. She's got Marina Shafir already over there. It wouldn't surprise me if they eventually bring on Jessamine Duke. But at the very least, you could always use Shafir and Baszler as Jon Moxley's double set of bodyguards protecting that championship because they're both badass women. So I could easily see Baszler fitting into the Death Rider storyline, even though a lot of people don't like it, myself included. She could be a great addition to that faction. Gigi Dolan, I wholeheartedly expect her as Priscilla Kelly to show back up in TNA. That is where her boyfriend, I believe fiance now, is currently wrestling, that Zachary Wentz, who went under the name of Nash Carter, I believe, over in NXT. So it won't surprise me if she winds up over there. And honestly, her and Shotzi, if Shotzi wanted to go over to TNA, could actually revive their team that we saw come together with Tatum Paxley in NXT that a lot of people were behind, also myself included, the Chemical X faction. Of course, a nod to the Powerpuff Girls for those nerds of you that grew up during the 90s Cartoon Network era. I could easily see Dolan and Shotzi becoming something over there. That's also where I think Cora Jade, Alana Black should go. Can you imagine if they also throw her into that mix to have Black Heart with Shotzi and Priscilla Kelly as a unit? That actually would be a lot of fun. Maybe a heel faction for females over there, almost to the same degree as what Toxic Attraction and now Fatal Influence is doing in NXT. I could see that working out for TNA on those three people if they go that route. Eddie Thorpe is a guy that I think was just starting to find his stride. I didn't really see the connection or the big hoopla over him when they had him as a babyface, but this heel run that he had been doing, where he had been going after the people that were cutting him out because of his indigenous heritage and using that as motivation to be a heel, was very, very refreshing for him as a character. And I think it was working out very well for him. So it sucks that he's not getting a chance to spread his wings a little bit farther. But like I said, even before then, I was having a hard time connecting with him as a character. Nothing against the guy as a wrestler, nor on a personal perspective. I just personally didn't see the magic in it until he started doing his heel run. It's a shame that it was cut the way it was, but I can see him succeeding back over in New Japan. They're looking for stars. He could easily fit in over there and maybe become one of their big stars now, especially after they lost Bushi and Naito just over this weekend. So maybe he could be part of that revitalization that New Japan is looking for. If he maybe gets a chance with AEW, he could fit right in there. We know there's a partnership with them and New Japan as well as CMLL. He could always go down to Mexico. Riley Osborne would be a guy that I think could fit perfectly down in Mexico. According to that news outlet, Uncle Dave said earlier that Riley Osborne being cut actually confused him, as he does believe he would be a good fit over in AEW. It was still a head scratcher, but apparently from what he's saying, there was a lot more to that cut than just him as himself. It had nothing really to do with his in-ring work. Apparently there was some different set of circumstances for his release. People, I don't even know what that would occur to. I don't know if they're alluding to the fact that he, I believe, is married to B. Priestley now, who was Blair Davenport over in NXT as well as WWE's main roster. Whether that has anything to do with it, I highly doubt, but Who knows? I legitimately don't, and I'm not going to speculate. I just hope nothing but the best for him. Jakara Jackson really surprised me, especially since her and Lash Legend had made a great team. Don't know what's in store for her. I know that she was one of the, quote, outsiders that didn't really have much of wrestling knowledge or even was a wrestling fan before she came on to WWE, but she really showcased that she was a great competitor. So if she continues to be in professional wrestling, I wish nothing but success for her. Again, head scratcher as to why she was let go, since her and Lash had been doing so well together. They did split up Metaphor this past week on NXT, which makes us even sadder because they also released Ora Mensa, as we talked about, who apparently had moving down to Evolve and had been having matches down there, trying to make himself more of a prominent figure. Didn't work out, so two members of Metaphor have been released, and there's only two remaining, that being Lash Legend and Noam Dar, who just recently came back and won the Heritage Cup at that. Javier Bernal is a guy that was on our screens briefly, big body Javi kind of thing. Very forgettable gimmick. I didn't see any kind of long-term success with that. I thought they were making him a comedy heel character, which is probably exactly what they were doing. But it just wasn't panning out. And hopefully he continues to find some level of success in professional wrestling, and maybe this character was just the wrong thing for him. Now that he's going to be on his own, maybe he can use this as a chance to revitalize himself and come up with something new and refreshing that people can connect with a lot easier than Big Body Javi. This one actually does kind of hurt just a little bit, not gonna lie, because I always liked him in the NXT UK brand at least, and really was hoping eventually we'd see him up on the main roster. All three members of Gallus were released, that being Joe and Mark Coffey and Wolfgang. Some people have alluded that there's some personal animosity with Joe and Wolfgang from them and the IWC, stating that they're bad human beings, but Mark is a stand-up guy. I have no idea what that's referring to, legitimately have no idea. So I'm still speaking as a fan and somebody that doesn't know what people are referring to. I always liked Gallus. I liked Gallus quite a bit, and it's disappointing that it didn't work out for them. Even more so because as Scotsman, I really thought with Drew McIntyre having the issues that he did, they would have been great heavies for Drew McIntyre, and not as like, oh, I need help, because I can't get this job done on my own. More so of kind of like a Dawn situation, similar to kind of how Tony D'Angelo's character worked with him and his family on NXT. That could be how you could run things with McIntyre and the Gallus boys. I really was thinking that would have been a fun little combination to have Drew bring those three with him, and it could have been, again, the heavy for McIntyre. You got to get through them to get to him kind of thing. So that's disappointing too, but I hope all these people find success in their own way. I do think that some of them are going to, like, 100% guaranteed. Those would be the ones I talked about earlier. Alana Black, formerly known as Cora Jade now, and Dakota Kai. Those two women especially, I think, are going to do phenomenally well back on the indie scene or wherever they decide to sign to. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these people wind up in TNA. I'll talk about AEW briefly just because there hasn't been too much that has really caught my attention, with the exception of the Athena Mercedes Moné match that took place. I absolutely loved it. I can't recall if we got to see that match. I think we did. It was done WrestleMania week. Yes, it was. As a matter of fact, I made a TikTok on it. That match was absolutely spectacular. I don't think I got a chance to talk about it because it was during WrestleMania weekend and we did not have an episode on that weekend. But yeah, I need to see Athena and Monet go at it one more time. This time, I need championships on the line because to me, that would sell the match even more, especially as spectacular those girls worked with each other. Toni Storm continues to be, in my opinion, the crown jewel of AEW when it comes to the women. She just has such a wonderful character. It's unreal. Her little promo she did on Collision was absolutely fire. I love that they put Lady Frost against her. I'm a big fan of Frost. I wish they would use her more, not in Ring of Honor, but in AEW's main women's roster, as I think she could add a lot of credibility with her flying gymnastics skill, as she call it, killer gymnastics or something like that. She would be phenomenal on regular TV. It's still questionable as to exactly what AEW is doing on some of their weekly television. The Hangman stuff has been good. I love that the Don Callis family has had a rejuvenation, especially adding Josh Alexander to their ranks. I have to say that some of my favorite things going on AEW right now, the Hurt Business and MJF storyline, where MJF is just trying to get into the Hurt Business. This is interesting because these are two heels, essentially. This is MJF the heel and the Hurt Syndicate, which I believe is still a heel faction. Even though they get great responses, I believe they're still trying to present them as heels. I love that Lashley has had enough and that MJF decided to poke the bear one too many times, and, well, Lashley got in his face for it. So that was really cool to see this past week. And for those that are unaware, the 90-day no-compete clause is almost up with the final member of the original Hurt Business, one Cedric Alexander. Just last week, somebody put out a tweet that it was 9 days removed from being completely free and clear to show up, and there's already been a push to have him appear on AEW TV and reunite him with the Hurt Syndicate, which I think should be the route, because we all agree that the Hurt Business was very much a situation where they should have done more with them than what they did. And I really hope that eventually we see that come to fruition with AEW, because put Cedric with them and let's get a real run for the former Hurt Business, now Hurt Syndicate, as a four-man team and see what they really could have done if we would have seen it in WWE. Now, with them having more creative freedom in AEW, it'll be interesting to see what they can really do as a faction. I still think it would be great to somehow get those tag titles and put them back on Benjamin and Alexander, similar to when they won the Raw tag titles in WWE, and put Lashley in the main event spot, because quite frankly, that's where he deserves to be. He's got the look. Him and Shelton as a team has still been great. But yeah, I am all for Cedric Alexander coming into AEW and reuniting the original Hurt Business under the Hurt Syndicate name. Real quick, we'll talk about some of the returns in WWE as well. Rusev made a huge return on the Raw after Mania, which was an awesome show in and of itself also, where we also saw the faction of Breakker, Heyman, and Rollins come to fruition. I am so glad they're doing this. Can't wait to see where they do with that. Rusev came out and dominated the Alpha Academy, specifically Otis, and he's still doing this Redeemer gimmick, which people online were trying to say was a stolen from AEW situation. No, it wasn't. He came up with that gimmick and used it on AEW. Now he's doing the same thing here in WWE, and I think it'll actually work out very well for him. Also, Aleister Black is back in WWE. So happy for that. I honestly wished he had never been let go, so I'm glad he came back to the WWE, and people still are trying to say that he's reusing his gimmick. Well, yeah, duh, that was the same gimmick he was using over at NXT and WWE's main roster, so this wasn't a situation of, oh, they stole it from AEW again. People need to really do their research and not just jump on, they stole from AEW bandwagon, but it's also the IWC, so what are you going to do? There's more ignorance there than there is intelligence. It is what it is. But overall, I have to say that I've enjoyed the product as a fan, but also it's becoming very, very obvious to me, especially with these releases, that WWE has definitely become more corporate since they were bought out by TKO. That's where everything has changed. A lot of people have complained about the pricing of tickets, and rightfully so. I really do think we're just looking at a situation now where, similar to what happened to the UFC when they were taken over by Endeavor, which was the original parent company before they merged UFC and WWE under the TKO banner, they saw a lot of the stuff that's going on, at least with ticket prices and a few other things, over on the UFC side when Endeavor took over. And we get a similar situation now with TKO, with people essentially being priced out of having good seats on some of these shows. I mean, there was a report that one ticket to SummerSlam, front row, $40,000. Insane. I don't think that would have happened if we were still dealing with I hate saying it, but a Vince McMahon ran company, or at least a family-owned company if we want to go that route. But unfortunately, that's not what we get now. So I'm okay with just being a spectator from my couch because it seems like that's what's going to happen anyway. Is it sad that I may not be attending any more live events depending on prices? Yeah, a little bit. I don't think that's the case. Eventually, I will be able to go to one. Ticket price may still be a little higher than usual, but I was never a front row seat kind of guy anyway. Don't really think that's going to change now. Overall, though, I am still just a fan of professional wrestling. So much is so that because I did not have a new episode ready for you guys last week, this past Friday I shared a very special moment that took place for me, as last week I fulfilled my own childhood dream of stepping in a wrestling ring and having a wrestling match. You can go see the video right now here on this channel if you haven't already. Please go ahead and check it out. It is my in-ring debut in professional wrestling. I've been a commentator for a couple of independent promotions here in the state of Oklahoma for the last 8 years, and this time I stepped foot inside the ring and had a match, fulfilling that childhood dream of mine. And I've got other stuff coming up for that childhood dream inside the squared circle. So if you want to follow that as well as my character, you can go do so at my Facebook like page, Travis Harkrider. You can also follow me personally on X, Travis_TNT. That is for myself personally, as well as the association with the podcast. And guys, that's going to do it for this episode. What are your feelings about some of these releases from WWE this past week? Who do you think is going to capitalize on this momentum or maybe reinvent themselves and find more success outside of WWE? Sound off in the comments down below. Are you happy with what's been going on AEW and WWE's weekly television? Let me know what you do and don't like in those comments as well. And anything else you want to sound off with, put it in those comments section and let's talk wrestling because I love doing that. Again, if you're new to this channel, I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you're returning to this channel, thank you so much. Hopefully you guys are subscribed. If not, hit that little button and give us a like. Follow us on all of our social media pages, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok, as I said at the beginning and now into the show. I will come back again next week with a new edition. And you guys, I appreciate all of you. I hope you have a great week ahead. And definitely, I hope you continue to love pro wrestling.